No, it's good.
Okay.
My end.
Okay. Okay. Well, I can call the meeting to order. You confirmed that we had a quorum?
You're on mute, Carla.
Yes, we do have a quorum, and the press has been notified of the meeting.
Okay. Can we have a consideration and approval of the minutes from the January 26th, 2021 meeting? If everybody's looked at them and somebody can make a motion to approve them.
So moved. This is Adrienne Bush.
Okay, second, Jimmy Higdon.
Thank you. Okay. How do you want to handle the introductions? It's kind of hard to do it on Zoom.
Maybe we'll pause on that, Kathy, if you're okay with that.
Okay, do you want to just, Wendy, move on to the financial report and the program allocations?
Sure. Thanks, Kathy.
Okay.
And Kathy, if you don't mind, I will mute you because there is a bit of an echo. So one of the mandated responsibilities that KHC has is to report the AHTF financials to you all at least every 6 months. So my aim here is to let you all know what's going on with the trust fund, and then also let you know how we are allocating those funds across different uses at KHC. Well, there's Chair Coleman. Hello.
Yeah, somebody put me on mute and I couldn't talk. So can you all hear me here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Go.
Very good. We are at the HTF financial report. So we've gotten to the meat of the agenda. And I'm going to apologize if you all can hear a vacuum behind me. There's some HVAC work going on in the office. I thought home noise was bad, but office noise has been a challenge too lately. All right, so to give you all a sense of where we are with the Affordable Housing Trust Fund balance, what you all are looking at is the last 2 quarters since we last met. So the 12/31/2020 numbers would be the last ones you all looked at as a committee. I think I'm right about that. Yeah, in January we would have looked at those. And so then you've got our March 31st first quarter numbers, and then our second quarter numbers. And so let me walk you through what this means for that June 30th, 2021 column that's kind of in peach. So we have a balance in our AHTF account of $14.6 million. But we have outstanding commitments where we have committed dollars to projects, whether it's for the rehab of an owner-occupied house, the construction of a new single-family home, or the construction or rehab of multifamily properties. We have commitments of almost $15 million on the books. So while that cash is there, we actually have forward committed almost $300,000 more than we have in the account. Usually a negative number like that is worrisome at KHC. But we are actually glad to see this, because we have been practicing what we call We have been practicing what we now call forward committing the funds, meaning we usually carry a significant balance, and many of our projects, particularly our multifamily projects, can take a long time to come into fruition. So instead of letting funds just sit in the account unused and having much more demand than we have to give out, we are carefully and cautiously forward committing funds so that we can fund more projects, and we don't anticipate, running out of dollars and not having enough to allocate. But it is rare for us to show this negative to you all, and to show a negative this high to you all. So I wanted to kind of explain that. We do see this as a good thing, as a good practice that we are piloting. We've been doing it for a little bit, and this is the first time we have shown, a large negative balance, but we think that's a good thing. So any questions about this before I move on? So I don't want you all to think that this means there's anything negative about where we are. And I'll keep going. This table shows for you all quarter by quarter how much we have received into the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. Just to remind you all, this is these funds are generated by fees that the county clerks take in, collect when property records, transfers, mortgages, that kind of stuff. When they get recorded, we get a small fee. And so this represents how much has come into the fund. You will note that the fourth quarter of last year, we got $20. So that was a big aberration related to the pandemic and closures of clerks' offices across the state. But what we are seeing this year so far is that we're seeing, and these are for fiscal years, not calendar years. Please keep that in mind. So they're not aligned with, calendar year quarters. But we have seen over the last fiscal year, so fiscal year 21, really strong transfers in and actually higher than the last 2 years on a quarterly basis. So it's up to about $1.5 million. So we've just about made up for that really strangely low amount in the fourth quarter of the last fiscal year. We are pleased with this and glad to see it, bounce back and hopefully replenish the trust fund. If you have questions, please feel free to jump in. You won't throw me off. So that's the money that's coming in. And what you all may also be interested in is, well, what are we planning to do with the dollars? How have we do what we call allocating the funds for a fiscal year? And this is a little overcomplicated. I won't spend a crazy amount of time on it, but every year we do at KHC what we call our allocation plan, which is a general, it's not the end all be all, but it is our general beginning of the fiscal year plan for how we're going to use some of our funds that are fungible across different project types, how we're going to use those across the Commonwealth. And so please forgive me, the title of this ought to say HTF allocations for FY22, not 21. But for fiscal year 22, which is that peach colored column on this, we are looking at having $6.8 million to allocate to project types across Kentucky. And with that $6.8 million, our plan is to invest $1.5 million into single family homeownership production. So that funds projects with organizations like Habitat for Humanity. We have a number of nonprofits in Eastern Kentucky that build single family homes for homeownership. We also intend to put $1.5 million into home repair, which is spending around $20,000 a unit or less on single family homes where it's already owner occupied, and that low income owner needs some help with a roof, an HVAC system, windows that are broken, a foundation that's failing, things that could keep them from being able to stay in the home that they own. So modest repairs. Okay, and then the last row of how we propose to use HTF this fiscal year is for multifamily rental production. And this is to create or rehab rental units across the state. And again, with HTF dollars, it requires nonprofit participation in the development of the units or the rehab, and requires that we stay at 60% of area median income or below. So what you'll notice here is, wow, it really looks like almost maybe an outsized investment in multifamily production. We do have a number of nonprofits that are doing more rental production, and we do want to encourage that, particularly in areas of the state that don't have a lot of really good housing stock for rent. Or maybe much at all, Eastern Kentucky in particular. And I will hold up as an example, Partnership Housing in Boonesville in Owsley County. They have done, Kelly, I don't know if you can remember how many units they've done, but Cassie Hudson, their executive director, has led the construction of a bunch of new, usually duplexes in Owsley County. Do you remember how many, Kelly?
I don't remember. I'm thinking that she has like 4 or 5 separate multifamily complexes that
Duplexes,
she's
yeah.
done. Yeah.
Yeah, and they really do represent some of the, well, really the best rental housing stock in Owsley County, and have long waiting lists. So that's part of it. Some of this might also go to low-income housing tax credit projects. So I'm also going to share with you all, because it's not just HTF that go into these project types, these 3 proposed uses. We also put our HUD home dollars into those kind of projects. And so I thought I would share with you all, when you look at what are we putting into the development of single family homes or the repair of single family homes, when you combine our HTF and our HUD home dollars, we're keeping that dollar amount pretty constant with last year's allocation and not a whole lot below our fiscal year 2020 allocation into those uses. So that's just to give you a sense of, sometimes folks get worried that we're not maintaining our investment in single family development or repair. And we feel like we are at least holding that steady. I will pause there in case anybody has questions about how we're planning to use the HTF funds. I will share with you that we recently wrapped up 3 concurrent funding rounds. We shared this with you all in January. So that was a funding round for that home repair that I talked about, a funding round for single family home buyer development, the construction of single family homes for new buyers, and then for small multifamily development projects. And we did all 3 at the same time so that we could look at the use of HTF as well as other funds that we have across all 3 and kind of figure out how it would make sense to use the dollars across all 3, and even gave a couple of applicants the choice to prioritize what are they most interested in getting funded for, their multifamily projects or their single family projects. We really didn't have to say no to too many, which is a nice place to be. So those funding rounds have concluded. We've notified those who got awards, and we're even working on grant agreements and all that kind of stuff for those projects. The only other thing I wanted to share with you all was that we have updated our income limits for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. You may or may not remember back in January of 2019, which feels like about 10 years ago now, we made a policy change to how we set the income limits for the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. It is set at 60% of median income. This legislation doesn't specify exactly where we're supposed to get that metric. And so what we have done in order to help our poorest, usually our most rural counties, be able to serve a broader range of households, we have set the HTF income limit as either 60% of the Kentucky median income, the statewide median income, or the county's area median income, 60% of that, so that we can just allow more wiggle room, particularly in our lowest income counties, where if you take 60% of what's already a very low income, who they can serve is just a really tiny sliver of folks. And we publish these every year on our website and through eGrants. I'm not going to go over all of the limits with you all. I just thought I would share with you, every year we take that new policy and we generate a new table to let everyone know what the income limits are going to be for projects. And so for most of our, again, rural counties, it's set at that state median income, 60% of the state median income. That's it. I'll turn it back to Chair.
Real quick, what is the state median income number?
Oh, and I should. Let me pull up that table. Forgive me, I should have had that at the ready.
Yeah, just curious.
Yeah. No, that's a really good question. I'm looking to see if I have it populated in my.
So I see 27,350 a lot. So I'm assuming that's 60% of
That,
the number.
so that represents a state median income for one person
Gotcha.
of
Okay.
45,000 would be
Gotcha.
the median, right? And so then it would change for each household size.
Gotcha.
But you are right. When you look at Adair and Allen counties, Ballard, Barron, those are all reverting to the state median, because otherwise their number for their county would be even lower than 27,000. And what they're facing is when they already have very low incomes, to take an even smaller share of that, it just means they're leaving out a lot of folks who still are really, living on slim margins.
Right.
So this was a policy that our partners asked us to consider years ago, and I think it only makes sense. It just gives them a little more room to serve more folks.
Absolutely.
And with that, I'll turn it back to you, Chair Coleman. I think I moved on to an agenda item, and I should have let you do that. So my apologies.
No, that's fine. Okay. Next, we have a request from FAHI membership to increase the subsidy limits by Kelly Reynolds. So Kelly, take it away.
Thank you. So FAHI, as many of you know, it's a membership group of many of our nonprofit developers, and they have approached us because during COVID-19, we all know all prices are going up for pretty much everything. And they're experiencing that in the construction costs as well, that their materials are increasing. So they have asked us to consider increasing our development gap. And so we decided to grant them this. So it's a temporary waiver. We did this for them in 2020. We extended it through December 31st, but they're asking for a little bit more. So we have a slide here that kind of, it shows a chart of what we've approved for them. So for our single family home construction, so it's basically new construction or an acquisition rehab construction, we are going to increase their ability to draw down a development gap of $35,000 with energy efficiency. So depending on what a score is on a HERS rating, it gets very complicated. We can go up to as much as $45,000 is what we're going to approve for them. And then in our home repair, we actually decided to keep that the same as what we had granted them in 2020, because we're not seeing very many of those go over. But if they have a need to go over, they just need to approach us with a waiver request and ask. So that's kind of how it's impacting HTF. It'll be a little bit more money that they're using for development gap, but very needed. This is through December 31st, 2021. I suspect we'll reevaluate probably in November to see where they are and if we need to continue that. That's it. Any questions? Thank you.
I will add that part of the reason we're not making this permanent is it's just really hard to know, are these escalated construction costs going to be forever and ever, amen? Or is it going to go back? We don't know, but we know that we may have to consider a long-term adjustment, but we just don't want to do that yet. And so anything beyond these limits, we're doing case by case with, some kind of an evidenced waiver.
Okay. All right. Next, it looks like Wendy's back up with the KHC updates for American Rescue Plan Act funding.
Thank you, Chair Coleman. This is just, we haven't talked as a AHTF committee since January, and a lot has happened since then for KHC. So I thought I would very briefly just let you all know kind of what's going on in our world with relation to the federal COVID-19 relief funding, most of it under the American Rescue Plan Act. I'll keep it brief. I'm happy to entertain questions or follow up one-on-one conversations if we want to do that. So this first slide is just the range of housing provisions in federal COVID legislation that KHC has been tasked with administering. So in late December of 2020, the first bucket of emergency rental assistance funding was awarded. That came to the finance cabinet of the state, but KHC has been tasked with being the implementing agency for that. And that is $264 million. We've never seen the likes of that kind of funding. And this program has gotten a lot of national media coverage in many states for not rolling out soon enough. You all might have seen the New York Times did an article about how the state of New York has only paid out something like $117,000. I'll have better news for you all on it at the Kentucky level. But anyway, it's big, it's daunting, it's something we had never done before until last fall. But it's a significant amount of dollars, which means we can help a lot of people and a lot of landlords. A second tranche of almost identical funding has come under the American Rescue Plan Act. So an additional $209 million for emergency rental assistance. We also will be standing up later this year a homeowner assistance fund to help homeowners who are behind on their mortgages. We will be getting, and that's $85 million. We will be getting almost $52 million in new and additional home funds that can help create housing for the homeless in Kentucky. And then we were recently awarded 257 new emergency housing vouchers added to our Section 8 housing voucher program. And I'll talk about those in just a second. For some of these programs, localities also got direct grants, and I've listed that at the bottom of this chart. So that's on top of what's come to the state of Kentucky or to KHC. In some cases, localities or local public housing authorities also got allocations. So for the emergency rental assistance that was approved at the end of December, we are operating that as the Healthy at Home Eviction Relief Fund. Got the website on here in case you want to share that with anyone. We launched February 15th. We were one of just 6 states to launch that soon, that early. We have paid out a little over $32.6 million to help tenants across the state. We primarily pay landlords directly and utilities directly. We're helping with both rent and utilities. We've received 12,700 fairly complete applications. That is a vague term and not an official marker, but we often have to do a lot of follow-up to get all the documentation that's required, though we have significantly streamlined the required documentation as Treasury offers new guidance, every couple of weeks or month. We have processed almost 9,000 individual payments because one tenant might have a utility or 2 utilities and rent. So that could be multiple payments per tenant. So 9,000 approximately individual payments processed for over 6,200 households, renter households across Kentucky. The average amount of assistance per tenant is $5,200. And we're getting somewhere between 350 to 500 applications per week in new applications into the system. We know that with the CDC eviction moratorium ending at the end of this week or this weekend, we could see more applications come in or just more folks frantic about the status of their existing application. So again, we received $264 million to the state. Louisville and Lexington also got their own grants. On top of their own grants, we recently transferred a total of $38.7 million to Louisville and Lexington because Louisville was out of funding. Lexington is approaching that point, and so we wanted to supplement their local grants. We don't operate in those 2 counties, so we wanted to make sure they had enough funds to keep going. And again, we've paid out $32.6 million, and about $2.8 million has been utilized for admin because we've added 80 staff to work this program. So altogether, we have committed a little over $74 million of our funds. That's 28% of our overall grant in a matter of months. We're pretty pleased with that progress, but we still have roughly $170 million to assist tenants and landlords in the 118 counties we serve. So we do not expect to run out of funds. Please encourage folks to apply if they need help. And just to remind you all, we're working in 118 counties, and the folks have to be tenants and they have to be in arrears and at 80% of area median income or below. So it goes up higher than most of our assistance programs in terms of the incomes we can serve. We do a lump sum direct deposit to landlords, and we do lump sum direct payments to utilities. Sometimes it's a direct deposit, sometimes it's a paper check. We can calculate back to April of last year for assistance, and we can cover a total of 15 months. We can do 12 months of arrears and 3 months of future rent. Same for utilities, 12 months of utility arrears and 3 months of future. It's just based on what is still owed. And anybody who gets our assistance gets that 3 months of future help for a couple of reasons. One, we want to keep them stable. Two, we've got enough funding to help in that way. And three, we would like to keep them from having to reapply to us every single month, because we do have a backlog we're working through, and we want to get them some stability for a period of time so they don't have to come right back to us. Any questions about Healthy at Home? I think I've got a flyer. We'll send this presentation out to you all with a link to our flyer. We also have a Spanish language flyer, and then the website itself. We really do encourage anyone who's behind on rent or utilities to apply. They can have a friend or a family member help them. There's a way for that third party to identify themselves, that they're helping, and even give us their contact information in case, they're working with somebody who just can't manage it quite on their own. All right, I'll keep going. There's no question. So we also will be standing up a homeowner assistance fund to help homeowners who've gotten behind on their mortgage. We will be getting $85 million to do this work. We are awaiting guidance from Treasury before we can finalize our plan and do a formal announcement and open an application. What's good about the situation for homeowners is there's no imminent threat that there's going to be a wave of foreclosures. The federal government has put in a lot of protections to pause any foreclosures and hopefully prevent them. And a foreclosure simply doesn't happen as quickly as an eviction. So we are confident we're going to be able to help folks before they get to that point. We do have a website set up where if you as a nonprofit, as a bank, or as a homeowner want to make sure when we have our program ready to launch, we have a sign up page where you can just give us your information and we'll make sure you get updates and you'll know when the application opens. And we've had I can't remember the number, but we've had a lot of folks sign up for that already. Okay, we also got through the American Rescue Plan Act 257 new Section 8 vouchers that are called emergency housing vouchers to house people who are homeless or were recently homeless. This requires a partnership between KHC as a public housing authority, because we have a Section 8 program in-house, but also KHC as a continuum of care across our homelessness partners. We play both roles for Kentucky, so we actually had to execute a memorandum of agreement between ourselves. One department and another had to agree to work together. It wasn't hard to broker that. So anyway, we have begun doing referrals to get these leased up, and the idea is just to get a lot of folks who were recently homeless or currently homeless permanently housed. They offer a lot more flexibilities than a regular voucher, and even some dollars to help with security deposits, utility deposits, that kind of stuff, which is just, it's almost like a wish come true for our Section 8 program. And just to give you all a sense, it's not just KHC who got these. Public housing authorities across the state got these new special vouchers. The ones that are in green are the public housing authorities that KHC's homelessness programs, our continuum of care. We will work with them to get folks referred for their vouchers and get folks leased up. And then lastly, we are getting an incredible one-time additional allocation of HUD home dollars, again geared toward homelessness. So almost $52 million that it could be used for rent assistance, our aim is going to be to use it toward the development of permanent housing for the homeless and to cover supportive services for the homeless. We could do things like buying a hotel motel and converting it into just really tiny, really affordable apartments, and even maybe subsidizing it over time because homeless folks usually don't have a lot to pay for, a lot of income for rent. We don't have much guidance on this at all from HUD, and we're anxious to get it, but we haven't received any kind of information about when the money will come and what the regulations are going to be around this, because this is a pretty unique allocation from HUD. But we're really excited at the prospect of being able to create a bunch of permanent units to house folks who have been unhoused or were recently unhoused. I recommend if you're interested in any of that stuff that you sign up for our e-grams. That's where we will announce funding rounds or the homeowner assistance fund opening up, anything like that. E-grams is your best bet. And with that, I'll turn it back to Chairman Coleman. Thank you all very much, and I'm happy to take questions.
All right, thank you very much. A very thorough report, to say the least. Does anybody have any additional questions? All right, and then again, great job, Wendy, on that one. Any other business or announcements that we need to? This is the time to share that with the group, something that we didn't have on the agenda that we wanted to make aware to everyone. All right. Looks like our next meeting is scheduled for January the 22nd of 2022. It's weird looking at that on a piece of paper, 2022. Okay, yeah.
Sorry about that.
So with that meeting in 2022, will that be an in-person meeting, or are we considering still doing the Zoom?
I think we gotta play. I think we gotta play that by ear for right now.
Okay.
I'm hopeful we could be in person. I would really like that, but I don't want to promise it yet, just given all the uncertainties right now.
Right, could have another wave coming here. So, all right. So at this point, we'll plan to do it that way, but there will be plenty of communication on what we do there.
Yes, sir.
All right. Okay. Good deal. Well, if that is all, and no one has anything else for the good of the cause here, we will go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
This is Ann Holland. I motion we adjourn.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Kathy Figglestaller, I make a second.
Thank you, Kathy.